So raise our voices and sing together to begin our evening. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Here's my life. Here's my life. Take a few moments to be in silence. Put your hand on your heart. Think of the words of the song. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart. Here's my life. Here's my willingness to rise above my own stuff, my own ego, my own fears, my own concerns, so that I can be more closely connected to you, to my source. Spend a few moments in silence, listening, remembering the words to the song, feeling it deeply. Here's my heart, Lord. We give thanks for this opportunity to be together this evening. Another wonderful evening of connection, of allowing the principles of A Course in Miracles to guide us, to remind us of a second. Take care of it. A little technical issue here. I'm just going to have to pull this back because I can't see what's going on. It's okay. So, welcome everyone. Happy Thursday. Happy Holy Sacred Thursday. Miracles with a Twist. Oh, and today's the National Day of Prayer. Oh, how wonderful. How wonderful is that? So we are in a prayerful state of mind. We are in a prayerful state of mind. National Day of Prayer means that all over the world, or that all over the country anyway, people are praying together. I love that. I love the idea of being in prayer with others. So as we move through this evening together and we have a prayerful state of mind and a prayerful heart, let's know that we're connecting with brothers and sisters across the country. So give me one more second as I try and figure out what's going on under here. Well, we might have to deal with it later at the end of the evening because the setup's not working. I have a really great song for the end song, but you know, every now and then we run into our little technical issues. Yeah, we had an electrical storm and everything just went black for a while. We were just sitting here going, well, let's just see what happens. And then the cable went out, and so we'll just see how things unfold. We're just here to be in the moment and to be together, be connected, and be in a place of peace, even if it's just a glimpse of peace for a moment. We are here to listen to what the Course has to say to us and open our hearts and our minds and our willingness to follow the lead of our master teacher, our brother, Jesus. So, by the way, we weren't together last Thursday because on the 5th Thursday of every month, I have what I call a family council meeting, which is like a board meeting with a twist because everything I do is with a twist. And so I need that time to meet with the folks. And what I do is I put an archived video on the page so that if you came on last Thursday looking for something, hopefully you had that archived video and you could enjoy it. It was from September 2017 when we were meeting over at the Center for Wisdom, and very few of us knew anything about live streaming, and every once in a while Shelley Patrick would be in town and he would do the live stream for us, and we just thought, wow, technology is so amazing. And now we're doing it every week, and we're glad that we finally figured it out. We may not have figured out what to do back here, but we'll just see how it rolls out. I have a song, really nice song, but if it doesn't work out, then we'll just play whatever's there. It's multilingual. That's why I really like it. It's a multilingual song. I was hoping if Maru was on, she'd be so happy because it's English and Spanish. But if not this week, then next week. So please enjoy the archived videos and enjoy the time together, and know that all videos, all live streams become archived anyway, and then I move them over to the YouTube channel. So if you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, it's Rev Lori Cardona. And you know, if you subscribe, it doesn't mean anything will happen. Like, nobody's going to call you. You're not going to get any bells or whistles. It'll just keep you updated when a new video is uploaded. So all that to say, let's begin. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be with you. So if you're following the text challenge for the year, we are on chapter 12. So chapter 11 and 12 are the two chapters that I'm going to just sort of pick a few gems. There's just some chapter gems and see how they resonate with you, see how you feel about them. And if any discussion comes up, we have Tanzua monitoring the live stream. So if you have any questions, concerns, feel free to let Tanzula know. And she'll let me know. She'll alert me to any of your questions. So we're going to start with chapter 11 in the text. At the end of the introduction to the chapter, there's a bit of I would say, a prayer or a personal message from Jesus to us. It says, "My brothers and sisters, you are a part of God and a part of me. I come to you from our Father to offer you everything. Do not refuse in order to keep a dark cornerstone hidden." What's that dark cornerstone? That dark cornerstone is that place in us that is still clinging to the old way, clinging to the ways in which we know already don't work, but they're familiar to us, and we have not yet healed the part of us that needs to be healed in order to remove those blocks. And that's what spiritual practice is all about. That's what we're here for. So he's reminding us that in order for us to do this rising above, we have to be willing to notice that we are occasionally refusing to give up our strong attachments to whatever it is the ego wants us to remember and to do and to react from. So he says, "Do not refuse it in order to keep a dark cornerstone hidden, for it will not save you. I give you the lamp, and I will go with you. You will not take this journey alone." And there's several times throughout the text where we're reminded that we are not taking this journey alone. This journey is the journey to self-realization, higher consciousness, just learning to do better and be better. We're not here to be perfect. We're not here to never ever do anything wrong. We're here to just raise our awareness about what it is that we are doing on any given moment in time. Because the more self-aware we are, the more we are willing to be intolerant of the mistakes we used to make. Because now we're paying closer attention to the path that we want to be on, and whether or not we're actually on it, and we're not doing the things that the Course asks us to do through our lessons, and just through our daily remembering. Even if you're not doing the lessons specifically, the Course is becoming a part of you. Your spiritual life is becoming a part of you. If you're visiting this live stream and you're Buddhist, then Buddhism has become a part of you. Whatever it is that you do to assist your spiritual growth, that is what becomes sort of like the background, the background sound of the day. It can become like your theme song as you're going through the day and you're encountering difficulties, you're encountering what you might consider difficult people. But in the background, there's that reminder that you're here to do better and be better. You're here to rise above it. You're here to look at it from a higher perspective so that you can make loving choices and have compassionate responses. So, early on in this particular chapter, it says, "The universe of love does not stop because you do not see it, nor have your closed eyes lost the ability to see. Look upon the glory of creation and you will learn what God has kept for you. God has given you a place in his mind that is yours forever." So I like this line that says, "The universe of love does not stop because you do not see it." A lot of times we want to see in order to believe. We want to make sure that everything is solid the way we want it to be before we can have a strong sense of faith. But it's not always that way. And so the question is, can we continue to know that the light is there? That the light remains whether or not our eyes are closed or not? One of the examples somebody used recently was if you're in a train and you're going through a tunnel and it's really dark, the train suddenly goes black. You don't jump out the train and, "Oh my God, it's all dark. Oh no, what's happening? Give me my money back. I'm getting off this train." You don't do that. You just wait because you know that the train's going to come out the other side and there's going to be light on the other side. Whether it's the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel, or a train going through, a city place. We have those moments of darkness with the faith of the light, of what comes through the darkness. So we have to know that that's on the other side. So it's saying that even if our eyes are closed to it, and even if we're refusing to see it, that doesn't mean it's not there. It is still there. I said the Lincoln Tunnel, so it kind of reminded me. I think I've told you guys this story. It was the Holland Tunnel or the Lincoln, but the Lincoln Tunnel takes you like to, when you come out of the Lincoln Tunnel, you're like close to 42nd Street, right? You're like really in the heart of Manhattan. Was the Holland Tunnel isn't quite so dynamic, a little further down. So one time I had a friend visiting me from South Carolina, my friend Ron. Many of you know Ron. He's been my friend for over 30 years. And he had never been out of South Carolina. And he came to visit me. I was visiting my parents in New Jersey, and he came with me. So that was like, whoa, it was like suburbia, but it was not rural, and where he was living was so rural, and he hadn't gotten around too much, even at, our ages. We were in our 20s at the time. So I borrowed my parents' car, and I was like, we're going to Manhattan. And to me, it's just like so exciting to go to Manhattan and spend the day with him. But it did not occur to me that it would be such almost like a shock to his system, So not only are we driving, through Jersey, which gets more city and city as you get closer to the tunnel. Then we go in the tunnel, which is dark, and he had never had that experience. And then we come out of the tunnel, and we are in New York City. It's like, whoa, skyscrapers and everything, right? And he actually let out a yell. It was the cutest thing. I wish back in the day we had phones so I could videotape. He just went, no! I was like, what? He just could not believe that it was more dynamic than anything he could have imagined or anything he'd ever seen. You could see New York all you want on television, but it's not the same as being there. And it's the same thing with us. We can think about having faith. We can think about forgiveness. We can think about being kind. But until we actually step into the challenge and stretch a little bit and move into that willingness to rise above our obstacles, to try and break away from the blocks to love's consciousness, then we have our eyes closed. We're still in the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel. We're still in the tunnel. We haven't moved through. Even though we know, and there's plenty of times when you just might feel that way. You just might feel, oh, this is just my dark night, But as long as you know that there's light on the other side of the dark night, then you're still holding on to some level of faith and some level of trust. And the Course says trust would solve all problems. Trust would solve all problems. And I got to say, my confession, my weekly confession, is that there's plenty of times when I feel like my faith is a little bit shaken. And, I got to say, well, how long do I want to stay on this volcanic ground? I need to step off. I need to find it within myself to step off. Yes, there's a question?
Nancy's asking, where in chapter 11?
Okay, Nancy, it's chapter 11, section 1, called The Gifts of the Father. And I was reading from paragraph 6. And just when you find that, I'm going to zip away to something else. So let's go to, as long as you're looking in your book, let's go to the second section, which is called The Invitation to Healing. Paragraph, you see, end of paragraph 6. It says, your willingness need not be perfect. Isn't that, I bring up willingness a lot because the Course reminds us that all we need is a little willingness. It's like if you were agoraphobic, and you got to go through the tunnel, are you willing to just take that step because you know that you can come over to the other side? Willingness can be tricky for us, right? If you have any fears or phobias, or if you have any restraints around your willingness to forgive, if you have any judgments that are making it hard for you to see beyond them, then your willingness might be a little hard to capture. So the Course is saying, it's okay, we get that. Just have a little willingness. Just begin with a little willingness, because that will grow, that will expand. It's like planting a seed. So now we're, again, chapter 11, section 2, paragraph the end of paragraph 6. It says, if you will merely offer him a little place, he will lighten it so much that you will gladly let it be increased. Would you be hostage to the ego or host to God? So again, it says, you need but little willingness, and your willingness need not be perfect because his is. Your willingness need not be perfect. If you merely offer him a little place, he will lighten it so much that you will gladly let it be increased. I was listening to a Sufi teacher the other day, and they were saying that Sufism, as a mystical path, is a path of devotion. And people who are Sufis, they believe that you live in total surrender to spirit, to spirit's guidance. And I thought, well, that's what we want to do. We want to live a life of devotion, a path of devotion. Of course, miracles can be a path of devotion. And it's up to us to see how willing are we to follow it on a daily basis and to have its teachings permeate our consciousness and to become just a part of who we are. And there's plenty of times in life where we're going to maybe not show up as our best self. You know, there might be just certain areas where we need to continuously go back. But as long as we're aware of it, we're paying attention to it, we know that this is something that needs to be worked on as opposed to blaming someone else or putting it on someone else. As long as we have that willingness, then we can start seeing little changes, little glimpses of light, little opportunities to move more into that uncomfortable position that we have to stretch out of. Like yoga, stretching, just stretching. Stretching into a more advanced position. All right, let's see what else I have marked here. Okay, now this is section 4, which is called the inheritance of God's Son. No, I'm sorry. Let's go to section 5, which is called the dynamics of the ego. Let me give you a minute to scurry on since I'm jumping around so much. The dynamics of the ego, section 5. It says, no one can escape from illusions unless he looks at them, for not looking is the way they are protected. There is no need to shrink from illusions, for they cannot be dangerous. We are merely to look more closely at the ego's thought system, because together we have the lamp that would dispel it. Remember, we started with the promise that Jesus says, I give you a lamp, I'll go with you. You're not doing this alone. So now it's saying that, oh, now we have a lamp. What's the lamp? The lamp is our spiritual practices. The lamp is our willingness to look at ourselves, to deeply be in a state of self-reflection, self-inquiry, to be able to have self-realization. Again, no one can escape from illusions unless he looks at them, for not looking is the way they are protected. Do you understand that if we're not willing to look at those blocks, then we're protecting them. We're saying, well, I have this little special need to be angry at this person in the past, so I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to let that sit there and fester for a while. That's not bringing the lamp to the situation. It's not bringing the lamp to the block. There is no need to shrink from illusions, for they cannot be dangerous. We are ready to look more closely at the ego's thought system, because together we have the lamp that will dispel it. So just think about how powerful the mind is. Just how powerful your mind is. I'm going to give you a little example that might just be so silly, but it just shows you the power of the mind. The other morning, I was walking Ernesto. And as I was walking him, I saw a giant crab. It was big. It was like, I don't know, maybe this big. And it was scurrying across the street the way crabs do. You know, you ever seen a crab scurry? A big like that? Yeah, like that. And I was wondering, what should I do? Like, because it was scurrying very quickly. And I was wondering, should I keep going one way to avoid the crab, or should I walk toward the crab? Because a part of me was curious to take a closer look. And I was also wondering if it would be dangerous for Ernesto to get close to the crab. and it occurred to me that I know nothing about crabs, right? So I'm like concerned about what to do, what not to do, and I'm just sort of lingering in the middle of a street, trying to decide which way to go, and then there was a little bit of a wind, and it turned out to be a leaf. It was just a big leaf. It was a big, dried up leaf.
That was your crab?
That was my crab. But I'm just saying the power, what were you going to say?
Well, I said maybe it was a pelican, but it has something to do with me thinking my kid was a pelican years ago.
Oh, okay. Inside joke.
Yeah.
So my point is that the power of the mind created an entire scenario around what I thought I saw, right? I went into like problem solving. I was like trying to create the best, most safe place for my dog, and it wasn't a crab. It was an illusion of a crab. And so if something so simple can trip us up, imagine how tripped up we can get by the many things that we have created in our minds about how things are supposed to be, and how people are supposed to be, and how the world is supposed to be, and how those things may have caused us to harden our hearts a little bit, to sort of pull back from our willingness to truly remove the blocks to love. I mean, that's just a little example. I mean, you can just think of all the times, you know, something just caught your eye and you thought it was something, and that same thing happens when people talk to us, when we are engaged in uncomfortable conversations, or if we're just in the world, in a world of conflict. And I don't mean major conflict, I mean just minor conflict, interpersonal conflict. We start creating stories in our mind. I had a friend once who told me, I started to try and interpret for her, it was not my business, but I was trying to interpret for her what it was she was saying, which was not what she was saying, but I was like going into my head. And she said to me, you know, you're making up a story, and I know a lot of people make up stories, but they're usually the length of a commercial. You're making up the length of the Titanic, you know? And it was like, it was true. I had just gotten off into a story in my head. And that's what we often do. I'm sorry.
Ben says, don't take mushrooms before you walk on this, though.
Thank you, Ben. Your wisdom will stay with me. I'm throwing the mushrooms out. Enough of that. No more mushrooms. All right, let's see what else we got here. Lots of gems. This is a good. Then both of these chapters are just filled with gems worth pursuing. I mean, hopefully you're reading the whole thing, and I'm just pulling out a little thing here and there. I have these wonderful little magnets that Lisa gave me, and I can just click every single page that I want to refer to. It makes it so much easier than the old days when I was just dropping every single bookmark. I'd take a bunch of bookmarks in there and they'd all fall out. It says here, let's see, where are we now? Still in section 5, but paragraph 16. Do not underestimate the appeal of the ego's demonstrations. Do not underestimate the appeal of the ego's demonstrations. It is so appealing. It is so appealing because the ego, remember what we say about the ego is really our subconscious programming. It's our fears, it's our wounds, and it's all this stuff that sort of pulls us in one direction or another back into our heads, back into our concerns, back into our judgments. Yes, Lisa?
The continuation of that sentence is, to those who would listen. That's the best part of when you're in your head, is to find somebody else who will get into, do the same thing, and you can create this whole thing that's just a big mess. And if somebody else happens to come by in the room and hops on board, it can get really, really nuts, and it's all an illusion. It's abstract. It is just crazy.
It's not that it can get crazy. It is crazy.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, we see it in a microcosm and in a macrocosm. Political divide. There's political disruption in Colombia, South America right now. I was a little bit concerned. A friend of mine just moved there. There's all this stuff that happens that shows us what happens when people come together to engage the whims of the ego, the need for power, the need for diverseness, not diversity, to need to be adversarial. And so we're little by little, those of us who are really trying our hardest to step out of that. We're here to do the practices. So let's see what else we got. Let's scurry on over to chapter 12. Now this chapter, interestingly enough, is just jam-packed with highlights. I don't know, maybe last year when I was reading it, I was like one of those people who over-highlighted. That joke where not a joke, it's like a meme on Facebook where you see this book and it's completely highlighted and it's like, oh, there's the Course in Miracles. It's because some of us get a little carried away with our highlighting. And then when I want to go back to it, I have to underline certain areas because
and stars. And
right. Then you have to put arrows. Yeah. Because once you've had your book a while, it really, it just, every time you look at a particular paragraph or chapter, you might see it differently than the first time. In fact, you will see it differently than the first time. There's things that are going to jump out at you that you may not have seen before. Comment? Question? No? Okay. So now this is the chapter 12, section 1, the judgment of the Holy Spirit. It says, line 4, understand that you do not respond to anything directly, but you are responding to your interpretation of it. Your interpretation thus becomes the justification for your response. That is why analyzing the motives of others is hazardous to you. Like me making up my story, the length of the Titanic, is because you go into interpretation, you go into your judgment, and then you start deciding that what you've projected is what is true, which may not necessarily be true. Did you ever put in a call to somebody that you really wanted to talk to, and then they didn't get right back to you, and you started making up stories as to, right? Oh, they must be mad at me. Or text. You text somebody and they get back, and then you just start making up these stories about what's going on? What did I do? They must be mad, But it's like, we're just interpreting what we think is going on without information. We've just understand that you do not respond to anything directly, but to your interpretation of it. So you're not really finding out what's going on. You're just making an assumption that you're responding from and reacting from your interpretation of what's going on. Down to paragraph 3, it says, everything else is an appeal for healing and help, regardless of the form it takes. Every loving thought is true. Every loving thought is true. Everything else is an appeal for healing and help, regardless of the form. This is where the Course reminds us that there are only two true emotions. Love, or anything that's not like love, which is a call for love. This is a tough one when you're really up against someone or something that you think is harmful to you. And so it becomes your challenge to say within yourself, that person is not hurting me, that person is calling for love, which should give me the opportunity to bless them. That doesn't mean let harmful people into your life. It means understand that pain comes from a place that is not loving, and all you can do is respond in love. If you respond in anger and attack, you're just feeding it and perpetuating more of it. What? What are you laughing?
No, it's so true. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking of, particular people that I know that's true. And it's sad because I know it's true that it's reaching for love and in such a revolting way.
It's so great that you were able to think of particular people, because that's what we need to do. We need to say, oh, here's that person that I think is revolting. That's the word you use, right? This is the person that I think is revolting. And now I have to remember that act of revolting behavior is a cry for love. Yeah. Now, we've talked about this over and over the weeks, is that it may not be in us to be so above our own issues, our own concerns, our own anger, that we can just say, oh, I love you, right? But we have that little willingness to try and understand that what I'm seeing, what I'm reacting to, is not real. It's not the real world. So if I can just have that little willingness, I can say, you know what, God, I'm just not feeling the love right now. I'm willing to feel the love, and I hope that my willingness is enough for you to know that I'm really trying to do my best. Could you just help me along? Could you just help me along? Because I'm just not feeling as though I have it within me right now. Just because you don't have the ability in the moment doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity overall. So we're working toward utilizing the capacity that is within us. You know, it's no different than going to the gym. You know, you might only be able to get on the treadmill or that thing that goes like this. You might only be able to get on there for 10, 15 minutes, but you have a goal to get on there for half an hour, you know, and you know that you can work up to it. You know that you can get there. Same thing with your yoga stretches. You know that you can get into that position because you know your body has the capacity. It may not have the ability in this moment on this day. It's the same thing with our spiritual practice and our willingness to see beyond the revolting behavior and to see it as a cry for love. We don't like it, but we can just try to see it that way. It says, if you would look upon love, which is the world's reality, how could you do better than to recognize in every defense against it, there is an underlying appeal for it. There is always an underlying appeal for love, even if we don't recognize it because of the behavior that we are interpreting as being revolting. I have this little note that I wrote to myself. It says, the purpose of fear is to conceal love. I don't know where it actually says that, but I found it in my own handwriting. All right, let's go now to, we're still in chapter 12, section 3, the investment in reality, paragraph 3. Here's one that can annoy us in the moment when we want to resist this particular thought. It says, whenever you become angry with a brother for whatever reason, you are believing that the ego is to be saved and to be saved by attack. If he attacks, you are agreeing with this belief. And if you attack, you're reinforcing it. Remember, those who attack are poor. Now, if you're really in a bad mood right now and you're mad at somebody, you might find this a little annoying. You might be like, oh, I don't want that to be true. But remember, tonight is all about the little willingness. The little willingness. I am reminded, just years ago, Oprah had an issue, a conflict with Iyanla Vanzant. Ilana Vanzant. And she actually, that Fix My Life ended up being a really good show. This was long before that.
I was trying to connect if that was the person.
Yes, that's the same person. But before that, she had another show. It was like a talk show. And it just didn't go well. I don't know if you guys remember, it was a long time ago. She had a talk show, and it didn't go well. And she and Oprah had a conflict. And a couple years went by before she gave her the Fix My Life show. She had her on her show, and she confronted her. Let's not forget what we're reading here, okay? Because we're going to make a reference. This is what we're reading. Whenever you become angry with a brother for whatever reason, you are believing that the ego is to be saved and to be saved by attack. You're trying to save your own ego by attacking someone else. If he attacks, if he attacks, then you're agreeing with this belief that that's how you have to do it, and if you are attacking, you're reinforcing it. Remember that those who attack are poor. Their poverty asks for gifts, not for further impoverishment. The poverty of the ego that is crying out for love, that is acting out in a way that you find distasteful, is crying out in a way that you have this opportunity to either give it love or allow it to go into a further impoverished state. Because those who attack are poor. Okay, back to Oprah and Ilan. So Oprah was really giving her a hard time. She was kind of pushing her a little bit. Like, you know, I gave you this forum, I gave you this show, and, you know, you took advantage of my production studio, you took advantage of me, you took advantage of my friendship, and basically you threw it all away. And I'll never forget her answer. She said, it's only because I didn't think I deserved it. And Oprah went like, oh, okay, I get that. You know, that she was adversarial, she was difficult, she sabotaged what could have been her only avenue for success. Luckily, she's got Oprah as a friend, because any of us sabotage, you know, you might not get a second chance like this. But she said, I didn't think I deserved it. That is an understanding of the impoverished spirit.
And what a blessing that she was able to understand that. Because I know for myself, I've sabotaged myself enough because I didn't think I was worthy.
Right.
Without even realizing it. And if I don't realize it, I'm going to repeat the behavior or whatever it is.
That's a very good point. If we don't get to these places of rising above it and doing the healing work and working on removing those blocks, we're just going to repeat it over and over and over again. And there may be some areas of their lives, I know certainly in mine, where we do have one little aspect of our life where the repetition is still there. It's like, okay, I still have that one cross to bear. I still have that one albatross to get off, over, you know. Oh, I thought there was another comment coming. Any comments? Speaking of comments? Anybody? Everybody? Glad you're here. Glad you're with me. Let's see. We might be done with chapter 12. Let me see. Oh, here's one thing I like. So it's so highlighted that I just, you know, it's like, where do I want to go? Okay, so now let's look at section 6, which is not looking within. It's the vision of Christ, the vision of Christ. And we're going to go to paragraph 6. It says, when the Holy Spirit has at last led you to Christ at the altar to his Father, perception fuses into knowledge, because perception has become so holy that its transfer to holiness is merely its natural extension. Let me say it again. When perception fuses into knowledge, because perception has become so holy that its transfer to holiness is merely its natural extension. It's like when you love, when you feel love, and you deeply feel love, the sharing of that love becomes a natural extension of you. Don Luis, who wrote The Four Agreements, also had a book called The Mastery of Love. And I don't know which one of these he did it, but he talked about this, going into a meditative state where you extend your heart to others. And he said, imagine that you have a flame in your heart. And it's like a candle that's lit. And you can, from that lit candle, give the light to the next person. And then that person can give the light to someone else, and on and on and on. And he asks you to imagine that you're doing that for your community, and then for your country, and then for the world. And you're just lighting up the world with this one. It started out with this one little flame. It starts this one little flame. It's like if I lit a candle here and gave you all candles that were not lit, all you had to do is go to that candle. It will not be diminished. It will grow. It will expand. It's the same thing with our willingness to transform our egos into consciousness of love. It will just then become a natural extension and a natural expression of who we are. And it will transform us. It will transform our minds. And love transfers to love without any interference. As you perceive more and more common elements in all situations, the transfer of training under the Holy Spirit's guidance increases and becomes generalized. So if we can generalize it, that means we're not going to reserve our love just for the good people who've done all the right things. And I'm putting good and right in quotes. Those are air quotes. right? That we just extend that into the understanding of everyone because we've already looked at their revolting behavior as a cry for love. Our interpretation of revolting. You know, imagine if you really agreed with, let's say, a particular shock jock, is that what they call him? A particular talking head on the news on one channel, and you think, oh my God, I can't believe what that person's saying. It's revolting. And then you go to your channel and you're like, oh, I like what they're saying. And oh, look what they said against him. Oh, I like that, you know. Well, the truth of the matter is there's also somebody doing the exact opposite. There's somebody who's listening to that person that you found revolting and they're thinking, that's true. And then they're going to your channel and they're going, that's not true. So we are not the high judges of everyone else's behavior or anybody else's opinion. What we are is the stewards of our own. The stewards of our own perceptions. And as a result of our perceptions, our own behaviors in the world. Our own extension of the best we can be in any given moment. Questions? No questions? Okay, I'll end with this line. This line is probably the best thing in the whole book. And I'll tell you what, this probably says it all. This probably says everything we need to say. This is paragraph 8.
Section.
We're still in section 7, which is looking within. Oh, I'm sorry, we were in section 6 before. So we're in section 7 now, looking within. And we're going to paragraph 8. When you want only love, you will see nothing else. Period. When you want only love, you will see nothing else. Because why? Because now that the natural extension of love is moving through you, transforming you, then that will be all you see. That doesn't mean that you will suddenly be Pollyanna agreeing with things that are not good in the world, good again in the quotes, or things that are harmful, but you will have an understanding that is beyond what our current ability of expansion of mind is, because we will want only love. Only love. And I love the story, it just came to me, but I know I've told it before, of when Ram Dass was at a meeting and he was just so in bliss. He was just driving, and he was driving like 2 miles an hour, you know, going home, and he was just like in his little high head, and he got pulled over. The police were pulling him over, like, what's wrong with you? They thought he was drugged or something, and you know, he got a ticket for, what would that be called? It's just some sort of dangerous way of being on the highway. And he said he was just, oh, thank you, officer. He's like, I just love this officer. I just love this moment. And, you know, there's probably plenty of times where I didn't get caught for things that I did, and it's okay that I'm having this ticket. And he just did not allow the situation to disturb this feeling of bliss that he was experiencing. If you want only love, you will see nothing else. So whatever it is you're going through, whatever it is you're growing through, you can still see it from a place of loving consciousness. So those are the gems, the chapter gems for chapter 11 and 12. But I also found some outside gems. So I'll share these with you. So this first one was shared with me by Reverend Lisa, who's here with us tonight. And it's a quote by Neil Donald Walsh. It says, yearning for a new way will not produce a new way. Only ending the old way can do that. You cannot hold on to the old while declaring that you want something new. The old will defy the new. The old will deny the new. The old will decry the new. There is only one way to bring in the new. You must make room for it. So as long as we are resistant to any of the work that we need to do to bring in the light, to bring in a new way of seeing the world, to bring in a new way of being in the world, as long as we are in denial of our capacity to do all that, the old will prevail. The old ways will prevail. And that's when those repetitive patterns come into play. I haven't made the change, so I gotta do this again. I have to make the same mistake. I have to marry the same person, different accent, but you know, I'm doing it again, right? Because I haven't made the changes that are necessary within me to remove the blocks to love. And then one final thing. This is from Meditations from the Mat. I think I might have introduced this book earlier in the year. I came across this book. This guy does this daily lesson based on his yoga practice. But he quotes A Course in Miracles a lot. And I do make a lot of correlations to yoga when I talk about stretching in order for us to move further into our spiritual practices. So I sort of interpret some of what he says as what it is that we are doing, not necessarily on the mat, unless you're a yoga practitioner, but what we're doing as we're stretching through our limitations and our discomforts, what we're doing in our spiritual practices. So he says, we find that amidst the jumble of pride, desire, aversion, and fear, there is still a part of ourselves bearing witness to it all and wants to return to our spiritual practice. Over time, we get to know the witness, and we wake up as if coming out of a dream. The Course is always telling us this is an illusion. And you know, a lot of the mystics' path, they use the word illusion or they use the word dream. I referred to Don Miguel Ruiz earlier. He talks about the dream from the Toltec perspective, that we can be aware, and as we heighten our awareness, it's kind of like we're outside looking in and we're watching ourselves. And it's like, oh, there I go again. I'm about to make that same mistake. Maybe now I can create a gap, and in that gap, make the decision to do something different. So there's the challenge is to heighten our awareness, be self-aware, understand that what's coming toward us that is up to us to interpret. Can I see my brother and my sister as a fellow blessing on this path, or am I going to see them as someone I need to attack because I think they've attacked me? Those are our options. Those are the ways in which we tend to function. And so we're raising our awareness around that and doing the work to do it differently. Was there something? Oh, okay. Oh, you know, I don't know how that happened because I'm only like about halfway done with what I wanted to say. So look, I don't have time to go through the lessons, so I want you to know that I really would like all of you, if you haven't already, if you haven't been doing your workbook lessons, if you're just doing the text, you're either doing one or the other or both. I think the lessons that came through today, this week, were 121, forgiveness is the key to happiness. I think that's one that we can go back to time and time again. Here is the answer to your search for peace. Here is the key to meaning in a world that seems to make no sense. Here is the way to safety at apparent dangers that appears to threaten you at every turn and bring uncertainty to your hopes of ever finding quietness. What's the answer? Forgiveness. Here are all questions answered. Here is the end of uncertainty at last. Forgiveness is acquired, right? Because it's part of our practice. We are practicing forgiveness. And 122 says, forgiveness offers everything I want. What could you want that forgiveness cannot give you? Do you want peace? Forgiveness offers it. Do you want happiness? A quiet mind? A certainty of purpose and a sense of worth and beauty that transcends the world? Do you want care and safety and the warmth of sure protection? Do you want a quietness that cannot be disturbed, a gentleness that cannot be hurt, a deep, abiding comfort and rest so perfect it can never be upset? Forgiveness offers you that. So, wow, that was high speeding through those two lessons. I hope you'll take time to really absorb them. Now, we're going to do a thing. We're going to have a moment of quiet. I'm going to ask you all to just go within for a moment. Because while you're within, I'm going to be without, trying to figure out how to get this next song to you, because I'd really like to play this song for you. So, Danzo, if you could just help me with this, we're going to see if I can pull it back up. So we're just thankful that we have A Course in Miracles. We're thankful that we have, that we have ourselves, our spiritual brothers and sisters on this path. I have no idea where any of this like brain stuff, healing your brain. Go back to your file over here. Go back to my file. Where's your file from the one you set up for today? Library. It's in the library.
It's in the library, and then this one.
Hey, hang on, everybody. All right, this is it. Okay, this song, I hope it was worth the wait. This song is in English and in Spanish, and it's brand new, and it says, everything's going to be all right. So no matter what you've been doing, no matter how you've been doing it, no matter where you've been going, just know that as long as you're doing your practices, as long as you have that little willingness, as long as it really matters to you, regardless of your anxieties, your fears, that there's something inside you that knows that you're headed in the right direction, everything's going to be all right.
We all love to make
But
those
first-
dishes. Tonight we're making
But first there's a commercial. So here, let me remind you that there's always this opportunity to give back to the ministry. I leave a link on the page after we're done, and thank you so much. We have a real basket here, but we have a cyber basket online.
Every fear, there's a love that embraces the heartache, the pain, and the tears. Through my faith and my doubting, I know one thing for sure. His word is unfailing, His promise secure. Don't us again, everything will be alright. Whole world's in His hands, your whole world's in His hands. In the darkness and the trials, He's faithful and He is true. The whole world's in His hands, don't us stop yet. Oh, 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 everything will be alright. Oh, 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 yeah. Father, you say everything's gonna be alright, but my circumstances say I won't last through the night. I need your word to hold me now, need you to pull me through. I need a miracle, a breakthrough, I need you. They say you hold the whole universe in your hand, but my world's falling apart like it is made of sand. Am I small enough to slip through the cracks? Can you take my broken pieces and put them back? Give me faith to believe you're on my side. Open my eyes to see you working in my life. Let the past remind me you never fail. And tell my soul it is well. Oh, you don't know I start again. Everything will be alright. The whole world's in His hands. The whole world's in His hands. In the darkness, in the trials, He's faithful and He's true. Your whole world's in His hands. You don't know how to start again. Everything, oh, oh, everything will be alright. Oh, 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 don't know how to start again. Oh, 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 everything will be alright. Oh, oh, yeah.
Padre, te confieso a corazón abierto que todo es muy incierto en este desierto. Mi vulnerabilidad está al descubierto. Siento que mi barca está muy lejos de su puerto. ¿Por qué será que ya no sale el sol en mis días? ¿Por qué mis noches son tan frías? ¿Por qué será que siento que me falta algo? ¿Por qué este camino gris se siente tan largo? Sé que estás sobrando aunque no te sienta. Sé que estás sobrando aunque no te vea. Sé que voy a salir de esta odisea. Sé que voy a ganar esta pelea. Sé que vas a estar esta marea temporaria. Que en ti yo viviré una vida extraordinaria. Y aunque no puedo entender, me consuela saber que
Yo sé que todo va a estar bien. Everything will be alright. The whole world's in His hands. Your whole world's in His hands. In the darkness, in the trials, He's faithful and He's true. Your whole world's in His hands. You don't know how to start again. Oh, 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 everything will be alright.
bien.
Todo va a estar bien. That's for you, Maru. I saw you came in at the end there. So let's end with this. I rest in God. I rest in God and let Him work in me and through me while I rest in quiet and in perfect certainty. I am God's child. Today I lay aside all illusions of myself and let God tell me who I really am. Amen to that. Amen to that. Amen to all of you. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and to all the nurturers. God bless you. See you next week.